Good evening, everyone. I'm letting everyone get into the meeting, the special event that we're hosting, and then letting everyone connect to audio before we actually start. So give us just another minute.
I was afraid that it wasn't working.
All right. Looks like we're still waiting on a Claude and Aline Via. It looks like Aline Via's and Claude seems to be having a little difficulty connecting. Oh, looks like you've made Claude. All right. I'll just make sure. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is April Dury, and I am the Vice Chair of the Oceano Advisory Council. The Oceano Advisory Council will be hosting tonight's special event. It is for the last at-large seat election available for the Oceano Community Services District, as the district made the decision to split the town into districts, and all the other districts have been seated at this point and fulfilling their terms. And this is the last position that will be at large. And the two candidates that are running for this position are Mr. Steve Montez, who is currently seated as an appointed OCSD board member, and Charles Varney, who is an activist in the community. We've invited both of them, and unfortunately, Mr. Montez has declined to participate. We had an outline of how we were going to do this with two candidates, and because there's only one candidate now, the timing has changed some. So this will be the structure for all of you to understand. So we'll open with 5 minutes with Charles Varney opening his statement, and then we're going to do some questions from the audience. You're welcome. Please put them in the chat. We have a few questions that were mailed into the, or emailed, I'm sorry, into the Oceano Advisory Council. So if questions don't show in the chat, we do have some backups to do. So after we do the questions, Charles will get 3 minutes to answer these questions as they come up. And then Charles will get a 3-minute closing statement, and that will wrap up this advisory council's hosting of the candidate forum for Oceano. So again, please, if you can, put your questions in the chat. That will help us. And I'm going to, Charles, if you can show yourself. Where's my, there you go. So thank you, Charles. I appreciate you being here. I'm just going to do one last look just to see if Steve Montez has appeared. I do not see his name. So thank you, Charles. And we're going to start the 5 minutes for you to do your introduction. And then after that, we'll start with questions. Let me get my timer real quick, and then you can start. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And when you start talking, I'll start the timer, Charles.
Okay, well, thank you, April. And thanks to those of you who chose to spend some of your time here this evening. I'm just really disappointed that this is not a forum with both of the candidates here. I think that the citizens of Oceano deserve that, and that it's a, it's helpful for everybody to hear our different positions or our similarities. And I'm sorry that the community won't have that opportunity. Certainly, there were a number of opportunities offered up. They were not taken advantage of. And so this is where we have ended up. And we may talk a little bit more about that, but this is what it is. And so I'm just going to give a little brief overview why I'm here seeking a position on the Oceano Community Services District. I've lived here in Oceano for a little more than 22 years. I'm chair of the Oceano Advisory Council. I'm a member of the Oceano School Parent Teachers Association. I'm a member of the Oceano PTA's Safe Routes to School Committee, and I've been involved in community issues, many of them of an environmental type, for decades and beyond, prior to moving here to Oceano in Santa Maria and Santa Barbara area for starting in 1969, actually. I think something that is really key to my candidacy is that my heart is in this for the community of Oceano. Every issue that I have put my time, effort, energy, and sometimes money into has been for the greater good of the greater community. I really don't have any self-interest, maybe some enlightened self-interest in terms of having a community that works for everybody. But, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through some of the top things that I'm interested in. I'm very fortunate and honored to be endorsed for this position by Jimmy Paulding, who's our new 4th District Supervisor and who is a champion for Oceano. And my relationship with Jimmy, which goes back many years to when I first met him, when he was first running for supervisor, is an important, I think, resource that I bring to this position, that I am close with and have mutual respect with the new supervisor, who has told us that he will, even though we're an orphan, that he will be representing Oceano for us until we have a supervisor of our own. I'm also really proud to be endorsed by my colleague on the Oceano Advisory Council, the past president of the council, Aline Villa, who is a setting director on the Oceano Community Services District. And Aline and I have worked closely with each other over the past 3 years, and especially on safe routes to schools. I'm also endorsed by Dawn Ortiz-Legg, our 3rd District Supervisor, and by Dawn Addis, who will be our next Assemblywoman. I see that I don't have much more time.
1 minute.
Yeah, okay. So I'll eventually get to all of these talking points, I think, this evening, over the next 4.5 hours. Oh, we're not really going 4.5 hours tonight listening to me. Okay, well, over the next 35 minutes, whatever. Big thing for me is that, you know, Oceano has been getting the short end of the stick for a long time. We pay millions of dollars into the county's general fund, including about $500,000 a year in transient occupancy taxes. And I think it's time that Oceano got a fair share of those taxes turned back to projects and support for our community needs, and especially infrastructure needs. That's the reason that I oppose the new fire tax, because it was unfair as a flat tax to everybody. And it was unneeded because the county has plenty of money coming in to support emergency medical services. So with that, I'll close and we can move on.
All right, thank you, Charles. I'm going to stop the timer. And so I'm wondering, are people having difficulty using the chat? I don't know why I don't see it. I'm going to unmute Aline Villa and ask her. Aline, can you unmute? Are you there? Aline, are you able to use the chat?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure why there's no questions in there. I will mute you, Aline. I'm hoping people will start asking questions. In the meantime, I do have a few. I'm going to start. Give me 1 second to get my timer back to 3, just in case. All right, so I'm going to start with the question. The Oceano, and I'm not going to use abbreviations very much because I know a lot of people don't know these, so I'm going to say the full names. The Oceano Community Services District has responsibility and authority for parks and recreation in Oceano. That fund has been defunct for quite some time and hardly used at all. The question is, what do you propose to do about this, if anything, Charles? And then when you start talking, I will start the timer for 3 minutes.
Well, I think this is a big area where the Oceano Community Services District does not stand up for the community. They actually have authority and responsibility for parks and recreation in Oceano, but they've really done nothing about that. Their budget line item for that has been zero for years. And there are all kinds of monies out in the world, in California, for recreational grants, for educational enhancement, for beach education, for after-school programs, that Oceano Community Services District could be partnering with Lucia Mar Unified School District in programs to more utilize the playgrounds at Oceano Elementary School. As any of you locals know, we have no parks on the inland side of Oceano. The only park is over on the coastal side. And Lucia Mar School District has been very generous in opening up their playgrounds for after school and weekend usage, but there are costs involved in that, and those facilities could be used to a much higher level. I'm thinking of an after-school arts program or a weekend arts program for children that could be housed at the school, supported by grants. But it takes a community organization of standing to, step up to that and lead on it. Or if they're not doing it themselves, to get in contact with the people who can do that and to support that. And so that's something that I would certainly bring to the table if I'm elected as a director on the board.
Okay, so you have 1 minute left. You're done with that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much
Okay,
what I have to say about that.
thank you. The next question comes in the chat. And when you start answering, I will start your 3 minute timer, Charles. It is, what other alternatives to the 5 Cities Fire Authority are there? And how will you, as a board member, seek the most for the people's money?
Well, this is a really, important topic for the community: emergency medical services and fire services. In case you didn't know, about 97% of the calls to 5 Cities Fire Authority are for emergency medical services. Fires are relatively rare in that sense. And I think it's telling that it's 5 cities fire services. It's not 4 cities and a community services district fire services. And I think it's also fair to say that this whole experiment has not been managed well. And Oceano Community Services District probably should not be in the business of providing emergency medical and fire services. The alternative, which is used across San Luis Obispo County, is, surprise, surprise, the San Luis Obispo County Fire Department. There's 24 San Luis Obispo County Fire Department stations across the county. One of them in Pismo Beach, one of them up in Nipomo, and the county contracts with CAL FIRE, which is the state fire department, for those services. It's really unfortunate that one of the things that we heard from Mr. Montes at the only forum that he attended at Juna Vista Mobile Home Park was that OCSD had already made a decision that they weren't going to go with San Luis Obispo County Fire Department or CAL FIRE. And there's a lot more to say about this. I hope that we can, I wonder, well, the 3 minute thing is a little, it's not like I need to leave room for Montes to be speaking here. So
You have 1 minute.
Okay, so Mr. Montes disclosed that, like, as I said, that the OCSD had decided they weren't going to go with five cities fire with the CAL FIRE. And immediately I raised the issue of how could they have done this not in a public setting. This was a clear violation of the Brown Act. They've already decided that they won't go with the county, and the county told OCSD with that the money that OCSD is paying CAL FIRE over the next year, $1,100,000, the county could provide through their fire department 3 full days of service at the Oceano Fire Station. And the CAL FIRE chief told Oceano they would provide 1 day of service a week for $1,001,000.
Okay. That's your time. Thank you so much. The next question that was in the chat room was, I'm just going to read what it says. I would like you to expound or explain what role does the Oceano Community Services District have? You and Montez differ on the role. How can Oceano Community Services District help with sidewalks?
That's right. Oceano Community Services District has a limited number of topics that they have authority and responsibility for. Sidewalks is not one of them, but groundwater recharge is. And OCSD is participating in a $2 million project on 19th Street that is focused on groundwater recharge. And as part of that program, they are building sidewalks. And I am proposing, along with the, well, not I, but the Oceano Advisory Council has worked for over the last year and so many months with Lucia Mar School District and the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments on developing a $15 million grant proposal to build a network of curbs, gutters, and sidewalks and flood control in Oceano. And this is a way that the Oceano Community Services District could first of all stand up in public and say, we totally support this grant application, and we encourage the county to support this grant application. Did they do that? No. The Oceano Community Services District could come on board that grant writing team and say, hey, you know, in terms of the flood control portion of this, which is going to be a big cost, we can partner up with you and we can look for money specifically for the flood control and water recharge part, and we can bring that money to the table. You find the money for sidewalks and you bring that money to the table, and together we can do a $15 million, or let's make it $25 million project and include more of the community in this basic infrastructure that Oceano has lacked for its entire history. Over 40 years ago, the first document that I can find on an assessment of the needs of Oceano named curbs, gutters, sidewalks, flood control. They didn't have the term safe routes to schools, but that was, you know, part of the spirit of it. And here we are more than 42 years later, and the same issues are here. 79% of the population just recently, early in this year, 79% said they want more sidewalks in Oceano. It's a very high priority to them. Every needs assessment done in this community has said sidewalks are important. Now, water, sewer, and garbage are important as well. Oceano Community Services District is doing a pretty good job with that. They have almost a $500,000 surplus in their water fund right now, which they are using to upgrade the water system, which they're using for matching money for grants that they're applying for, which is a real good way to use that money. And more.
Time's up.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll wrap that one up on the next chance you get, I hope. So the next question, let me get my timer ready for 3 minutes. The next question that comes up is, How do you feel about selling Oceano Community Services District's extra water allocations to the thirstier cities nearby?
Well, I think I need to get more information about that, but Oceano was smart to buy into the state water project. And so they have water from that it can declare as surplus. They can also declare that for their Lopez water entitlement. And I think that it's a good business decision on behalf of the community of Oceano. If OCSD can assist its neighbors and make some money, a fair return on the water that they are providing to our sister cities, that lessens the impact on the groundwater basin that we all draw from, that is getting degraded. And the drought, of course, is a great threat to that, that it probably makes good business sense. But so that's my basic take on it. But there are a lot of details that I'm not familiar with. And so I would want to just hold off kind of a final judgment about that until I have more complete information. But by and large, if we have extra water and can help our neighbors and make some money to reduce the fees and charges for our own residents here, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Thank you, Charles. I do not, your timer's done. Let me stop that real quick. Thank you. There's not currently another question in the chat, so I will ask one off the ones that were submitted. The next question is, for the past 2 years, Oceano's transient occupancy tax, the TOT is what it's called, has averaged about $500,000 per year, which all goes to the county's general fund. Why doesn't Oceano, or what can we do to help Oceano get, or what would you like to do to help Oceano get a fair share of this tax money returned to the community? Or do you have a plan for that?
Well, I think I've already, touched on this. First and foremost, the Oceano Community Services District needs to stand up for the community to the county and say, hey, we're not getting a fair share. At least that's how it appears to us. And we would like the county to do a full accounting for us of the tax monies that you get from Oceano and the tax monies that are expended back in Oceano. Now, that's a big ask. And it's one that is fraught with possibilities for inaccurate information. But I don't think that that's ever really been asked of the county. The fact that we generate millions of dollars in property taxes and now all of this money from transient occupancy taxes, and still the county comes back to us and says, you need to tax yourselves if you want more, if you want assured emergency medical services 24/7 in the Oceano fire station, just doesn't pass the sniff test for me. And that's why I, again, came out against the A22 fire tax, because I think until we stop enabling the county and start demanding that the county use our tax monies in a more fair way in our own community, we're going to continue to be on this treadmill. And I'm really tired of hearing Oceano Community Services District saying, no, the county doesn't have money for that. The county doesn't have money for that. My opponent has said, yeah, well, we don't have the money in our community to support that. And my response to Mr. Montes was like, no, we don't have the money in our community because we've given all that money to the county and the county has the money. The issue is not that we don't have enough money in our community. The issue is that we've given up millions to the county and they're not spending it back here. And that's the kind of shift in attitude and perspective that I bring to the board. And it's not, it's not a hostile perspective, but it's assertive, it's standing up for our rights and no longer being willing to
30 seconds.
be the, kind of the stepchild that doesn't really get much attention, as an unincorporated community, kind of using that family systems metaphor, the county's mom and dad, they're who we go to when we need something. And if they keep saying, no, it's kids, we don't have any money, and we just go, okay, mom and dad don't have any money, I guess we don't, I guess we just stop asking. And I'm not about stopping asking, I'm about accountability.
Thank you, Charles. All right, there's one more question in the chat we'll go to. There are a few, but this is the next one. What ideas do you have for dealing with homeless and cleaning up Oceano?
Boy, did you hear that sigh? I mean, the homeless issue almost seems intractable. The fact that homeless people don't have a place to go, and we continue to play whack-a-mole, whether it's in the willow forest, or it's on 17th Street, or it's down along Pier Avenue. And so, what's been going on up in the Central County is that a kind of a campground has been set up. I was looking at the county campground at, that starts at the corner of Highway 1 and Pier Avenue, and which is typically filled with big motorhomes and fifth wheels of snowbirds. But the southern part of that campground is 100 campsites, all with water, public toilets, with showers, with garbage service. And I wonder, why can't the county turn that into a place for homeless people to have transitory housing at minimum? The problem of the issue of homelessness is an issue of lack of affordable housing. That is an issue that is way bigger than the Oceano Community Services District. One thing Oceano can do, this may not be for homeless people, but for employed lower income folks, there's a lot of room in Oceano for build out of accessory dwelling units, infill. There's huge lots in Oceano. There's some blocks that have only really 6 or 8 homes on them. And there's room for 1 or 2 accessory dwelling units if people could afford that. One thing I would want to look into are relatively lower interest loans for people living in disadvantaged communities to put an accessory dwelling unit on their property and provide more housing, affordable housing in our community. So, and I definitely think that somebody from OCSD and certainly people from the 2 advisory councils in Oceano should be on any countywide commission that is looking at homelessness.
Okay, thank you, Charles. I'd like to ask you, there are probably 2 more questions in the chat. We've reached our 6. Are you interested in hearing a few more? They're pertinent to the OCSD position.
I'll keep answering questions until, people leave the classroom.
All right. This question has to do with the sanitation district. The question is, do you have interest in serving on the sanitation district board if given the opportunity? Are you familiar with the controversial history and its future once the redundancy project is complete?
I'm fairly familiar with the history of the sanitation district. I got involved in it, more than a decade ago through San Luis Obispo Surf Rider that was concerned about the spills and the pollution in the ocean in terms of safe water and water quality. I followed the drama of the Wallace group and a lot of the controversy around that. I was, I regret that the whole redundancy project was ever approved. I think it was a really critical point in time to relocate the sewage treatment plant to a better location, given sea level rise and global climate change, but can't bemoan that because that's sewage under the bridge at this point, and we have the redundancy project. And so how are we going to move forward with that, and how are we going to manage that? I think that it's being managed much better now. I think it's a much healthier plant. I think the coastal ecosystem shows that. I think that, I mean, I read a analysis that Carl Kempton did, and his point, I think, is that now with a much healthier sewage treatment plant, that's maybe the big reason why the Pismo clams are coming back up and down Pismo Beach. I would be proud to serve the Oceano Community Services District as a representative to the sanitation district, bringing my perspectives, and more importantly, representing the perspectives of the Oceano Community Services District.
1 minute. Good. Thank you,
think that's-
Charles.
yeah.
Nailed it. All right. There's one more question to be asked from the chat. Now's the time to get your last question in if you have one. Otherwise, this is a great question to end on. The question is, Charles, what is the strongest skill you have that would make you the best candidate?
Well, I think that I'm a person who puts time and energy into the community that I love. I'm not just a talker, I'm a walker. And any of you that know me know that is a truism. There are so many topics that are at play in our community. We're a community at the crossroads. I understand government. I understand how it works. I'm a person who tends to connect dots. The Oceano Advisory Council had a vision of a safe routes to school infrastructure, of flood control infrastructure. I created a task force for that, and through the Oceano Advisory Council, brought in the CMR School District, the SLO Council of Governments, and the County of San Luis Obispo. And we were very fortunate that the Council of Governments decided to take on the lead agency role in that when our own county would not do it for us. And we moved forward with this big grant proposal, which at the very end, the county said they would not support. That's another story. That grant project is still on track. SLOCOG recommitted to submitting that in 2024. And that's the kinds of things that I can make happen. I'm a good team player. I tend to bring together people who want to work hard, who want to think outside of the box, who want to be creative. And what I've learned is that as a guy getting into his late 70s, that there are so many younger people in public service positions who want to do the right thing, who want to help Oceano, and who want to partner with us in making our community a more livable, more affordable, a safer place.
30 seconds.
I think that's, I think that in terms of kind of the big picture, that's something that I bring to the table, that I bring to the Oceano Community Services District that I do not see there presently. Right now, I see parochialism, a narrow-mindedness, a let's protect ourselves, let's make it safe for the people that are on the Oceano Community Services District, not the people in the community.
Thank you, Charles. So no more questions are in the chat. We've asked just over the 6 that we had allotted for. So thank you all for participating, for listening, for checking in, for being a part of the community of Oceano. It's so important, and we appreciate that, especially the.
We lost your audio.
Oh, mine?
Yes.
You can't hear me? Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I can.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Anyway, thank you all for participating and listening and being a part of our community together. That's what the Oceano Advisory Council is about. It's about our community and doing the best and making the best that can be happening in Oceano. So with that in mind, the last thing that we have is Charles, if you'd like to do a 3-minute wrap up of your candidacy as we end. And thank you all for participating again. And thanks, Charles. We have your 3 minutes.
I think what I'd like to say to this great group of people that's assembled here is that this is a time really in the history of our community where it's so important that community-minded, level-headed, reasonable, open-minded people step forward to participate in these public decision-making processes. The Oceano Advisory Council is a really important community institution. It's been here since 1990. We report to the Board of Supervisors. It would be great to have an advisory council that is working hand in hand with the Oceano Community Services District. I don't mean that they necessarily agree on everything, but that they have at heart the goodness of the community and the goodness of the whole out in front of them. And the Oceano Advisory Council definitely could use more committed, community-minded people working on the kinds of projects that we are involved with, whether it's an affordable housing ordinance, or it's the curb gutters and sidewalks, or it's the simple thing of a complete sidewalk to the beach, which Oceano hasn't had for 100 years, but there's only 250 feet left that we need, plus a crosswalk on Highway 1, which would be great to have. We've never had one of those, a safe crosswalk. And this is the kind of project that, you know, is a fun thing, and probably with a bit of work, we could get that pretty easily. And it's the sort of thing that OCSD says, oh no, we can't do that. Would you rather have water, or would you rather have a sidewalk to the beach? These false comparisons. We can have all of that. And there's no reason why we should not. It's not like we're asking for some big, you know, special tricked out new infrastructure. We're asking for basic curb gutters and sidewalks and flood control. You know, that's a basic infrastructure of a community. And the more we stand together on something like that, and the more our community-based organizations stand in unity on that, then the better it's going to be for everybody. So I guess what I would ask is that, you know, you join with the advisory council, join with me in standing up for the community of Oceano for these kind of basic issues and the crossroads that we are at right now.
All right, Charles.
Thank you for being here.
5 seconds, and that's the end of that. Thank you so much, everyone. That's the end of this time. We appreciate you all. Thank you all for being here. This will be posted to the Oceano Advisory Council website for future reference if you have any questions. And the candidates are more than welcome to post it wherever they would like as well. It's a very public document for all to see and view. Thank you all again.
Thank you. Thank you, Oceano Advisory Council.
Of course. And I don't know how to